because we don't have the limitation, because you put one person is doing, you add two more people, it becomes lengthier. Two more people, they have their opinion, and it becomes 4 page, 8 page, and it have it will increase in geometric progression. What the important point here I would like to focus is documentation means putting the things in the requirement form in a clear as a clear text which can be referred while we process to automate the thing. What you are referring is, let's automate and concentrate on that thing. Why to invest energy on documentation? Am I correct if I summed that right? So argument to that is, let's have certain basic points documented there, following on to them and working on that model and then migrating it to the automation. Because elaborative document, what you said, would be requiring so much of time. If I remember, I have to the SLA system. For example, I'll prefer my project management document and will ensure that what the client says, I will put up how I would be managing my team and brief out the SLA system. These will be the critical, mission critical, showstoppers and all those things. And then I need to build up the automated tool out of those things. That would be easier rather than automating the things and then going to define the whatever our requirement is. So somewhere I do agree, I cannot completely, obviously there are the ways, but yes, my idea of documentation would not be an elaborative, exhaustive document where so many resources putting their heads and going through iterative method. It will ultimately become a separate project in itself. If with that exhaustive approach we would be looking, and obviously we cannot time the market in that context. Documentation first, of course, but to the extent we need it. To the extent it would help us in reaching to our ultimate goal in automating that stuff, and then referring this whatever is there, and that may not exactly work, but again we have a reference point ready. In other case we don't have any reference point, we are working in a fly. Okay, so when I was discussing is here, so I was comparing two things, to be and as is. Currently the situation is as is, to be is what we would be automating, but as is should be documented somewhere and compared to with a to be and what we want to achieve, and then that needs to be referred while automating the things.
I have one very important point here is, you are talking about the situation where I am developing. Now let's first understand the purpose of documentation. Any kind of documentation. Process documentation especially. When I do a process documentation, what is the purpose? Is the purpose to capture the baseline? There can be various purposes for documentation, right? The purpose can be to capture the baseline, my current situation. The purpose can be a plan which I am going to execute. Okay? The purpose can be to give clarity to everyone who is involved about what we are supposed to achieve. These are the broad three purposes why I would document anything generally, so that everyone has a clarity. Now, going with the first point, if my purpose is to capture the baseline, it doesn't matter I capture it before the project or in between the project, or do I capture it into documentation, or do I capture it straight away into the application baseline itself. It really doesn't matter if the purpose is baseline. Baseline would anyway be there in the application. I don't want to replicate that baseline into documentation. That's a waste of time. If I am already having one application, I will come to the next point. Second point, if the purpose is to give clarity to everyone about what we are doing. Anyway, if I am a service desk, let's say for example, we are trying to automate IT service management processes. I am sitting at a service desk. I want things as I want them, as per my operational requirement. I can straight away, if you straight away create a screen in front of me, I can give you the corrective inputs then and there itself and get the screen ready for me as I want it. Rather than you will come up with the documentation, you will send it across to me, then you will again go back, then correct it on the documentation. I would rather straight away do it on the application. This is how your application is going to look like. I have a user interface, I straight away start automating that. The only thing I will have to do is correct the database later on. So I would rather sit with the service desk analyst, build up a screen, rather than create a document of that screen, Because what I create as a document and what actually gets developed is many times out of sync. As a business, I want a person who is developing my system to come and see what I am doing and build it then and there for me and show it to me. I say go ahead and it's done. So if the purpose is planning, anyway, that also can be taken care with the help of straight away automation.
Okay.
Shared clarity, again, I don't.
The purpose for me would be the blend of both. Why? What you said, anyway you are present there and can the things automated. We are introducing a point of failure. We are making it a person dependent. When in number of people involved and the expert, right, they have the change of opinion, people may go and come while the automation is, while the tool is being automated, it is not yet there. So what may be your approach may differ in your absence, something, a key resource is not available. Then in those critical situations, we have the fallback plan in terms of document ready, which can anyway has gone through exhaustive brainstorming and have evolved because if
the purpose is the baseline, so that I can fall back upon. Application can also have a baseline. That is what I'm saying. And if you are saying that the person who is, I don't understand single point of failure because I'm going to each stakeholder and getting his feedback on the screen itself. I'm not worried about what is on the document. I'm worried about what he sees. I show him live that this is how your system is going to look like. This is what your application is going to look like. Service desk analyst, it's not one person, it is a group of people. I go and show them on a projector that these are the things. What are your opinions? Then once he is gone out, I call in the service desk manager. I say, this is how the screen is going to look like. Are you worried about any of the fields, any of the structure here? He says, from my point of view, from a control point of view, I want this report. So this field also should be there. I put that field there. I call in the head of operations. He comes and gives his input. I call in the IT manager. He gives and comes his input. I tell business that this is what I am going to capture in service desk form. They say, yes, these are the three inputs which I need. I have created a service desk login form or incident logging form or request handling form or whatever form. So this way I go to each stakeholder. I capture the forms, I capture their requirements straight away into the UI rather than doing a documentation of it. I capture document word by word. Then I try to translate it into something which the developer can understand. It's all waste of time. I would rather, I have already application, I have already platform. I add or remove fields on the fly, get it ready, roll it out. I think that's much better approach. Controlling fallback, I already have a baseline. I restore that baseline whenever I want to. I store that baseline, I make the changes on the fly. Of course, changes approval is required. I take a change approval, I make those changes. If something goes wrong, I restore.
So don't you think something you are building up, okay, and you go through various other processes come into picture. For example, change management process and other process, and they themselves are not that simple. And things like we say we can stakeholder says we need this UI and the blue feel like this way, these parameters to be added. So yes, they say, but is it not the way we say it is not as easy as to do the changes rather than we can have the documentation readily available, and then in that case changes are possible. We can have the things on fly, but the lesser number of changes would be coming, acceptance would be better rather than imagining and going and automating the system and then asking the people on having an agreement on that.
I wait for 2 years, do the documentation, get all the processes streamlined in the document, and have only 20 changes coming after that. Or I start with scratch, no documentation, I keep on doing iterative working, I finish, I'm sure I would have finished, maybe I launched a project within 6 months, 7th month I get 20 changes, 8th month I get 20 changes, 9th month I get 20 changes, 10th month I get 20 changes, my maturity of application would be much faster and I would be ready. Basically, I would be ready with the robust application within 2 years, whereas you would be just documenting for 2 years. I don't think that is the way to go ahead, because by the time I finish my documentation, my business has changed its mind and there is something new which has come up and I have to keep on changing. So changes, stopping the changes is not guaranteed. So according to me, my friend, what is more important is We have to have a system in place which will be able to give the solution on the fly to the business as and when needed, rather than waste our time and energy into documenting what they need and how they need it.
Still, I feel here is to what extent we need the documentation. When you say 2 years and I would have the system ready within a year or within less span of time.
ITSM processes, if you have to document all of them, there are around 28 now in version 3. But if you have to document all of them, how much do you think you will take the time to document them? If you give a time, each process, defining and documenting as per the business requirement would take you at least 2 years. Because configuration management process itself, by the time you start documenting it, by the start you finish documenting, your CIS has already changed. But you are no way in a position to take a baseline also because you don't have automation. But I would rather have automated discovery, pull up all the CI inventory, put it, create a baseline. As soon as the new inventory gets added, I have automatic discovery tool which discovers it. Why would I invest my time into documenting the CI?
In this case, I think then we need to be sure and certain that if there are n number of stakeholders, right? So what we are assuming here, everyone would be available on demand to look and have an application and would not come back and say these changes were missed or what advantage that documentation would have. We can shoot up to everyone and everyone can review and send up the inputs and immediately we can capture the requirements and start automating. In your case, when the things are you are building up the things and you want to the changes, the essential things is availability and acceptance. Acceptance means if you have n number of stakeholders, if I say the internal as well as the client of an application, the client would also be there, maybe IT and business both. So in that case, this is for the practical experience which I am sharing with you. It's very, very tough to bring the people because on the same page and on the same acceptance level. Sometimes we normally,
if you cannot bring them on the same page, even by showing a tool and showing the UI, how will we be able to bring them on the same page? By documentation.
Yeah, there's a difference here. Through documentation, it's in a very, very initial stage. We can share the documents here and get their points of view. What you are saying is the tool has to be there. Now, changes at one point of time, it's a code, some code is being written in Java. So changes somewhere may have cascading changes somewhere else. Another stakeholder named UI should be like this. Some stakeholder comes on, and if they comes with these things initially, and that has been captured, things can be in a much better situation. So this is how I put it here.
Thank you.